Oh, hello everyone. Happy to be there. I hope you too. And I hope you will find it interesting. It's a bit of an experimental session to talk about posters, how you can get them interactive and so on, including maybe with augmented reality. So I'm not sure if you are familiar with augmented reality. And if not, I will present you what is augmented reality and also how you could make some of the poster into augmented reality to not replace them, but complement them. So what we will not do is discuss about what make a good poster. I will not spend time to say, oh, you should do a poster for it to be good. So I will not say that you should not put text, too much text and so on, big enough fonts and plots. Wait, jump. Too many questions, too many equations, sorry, or one thing which is always forgotten is people are making like a landscape poster when the conference clearly says that it should be portrait and so on. Don't forget that, that's very important, otherwise you have usually issue. It's every conference, some people bring in the wrong format and have issue to display them. So, and of course, it looks better if it's a real print and not A4 papers. I have seen posters in conference where it's A4 paper and it's really not engaging. And the goal with interactivity is to actually be engaging people. So yes. What is interactivity? It's just when two things are working together. So by interactivity here, it's like when you have a computer, you have an input and a response. Here it will be the same idea that when people are in front of the poster, they are not just reading it, but responding. And so it will not be one type of interactivity only, it can be different types. So you can have physical interactivity where you will interact with the poster actually. So I will show you an example of such interactivity afterwards. It can also be like more like a mental interactivity. It doesn't mean that you have to touch the poster. It can just be that you are engaged with the poster and like mentally, so to act with it and just not be reading it. Or it can be like digital interactivity or a mix of all of them. So yeah. And you can have like very interactive stuff or some very low interactive posters, which is still better than no interactivity in my opinion. So why do you want to go for interactivity? The clicker is not working.
The laptop's over here, maybe that.
Oh, maybe I need to click.
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to, interactivity is enabling you to, there are like some conferences where you have hundreds of posters. You want people to stop at yours and they will usually read maybe 10 before being fed up and so on. So even if they have read their max limit for the day, if there is something interactive, maybe they will come. Or sometime we will see that there are some interactivity where, okay, people will not stop by your poster, but they will take the information for later. It's also to establish a good first impression, like as a very mind-blowing fact, the first impression you have about a person is just in a few seconds. So as soon as you see the person in their manner and so on, you have a first impression. For a website, it's even faster. It's less than a second, and the person has already an opinion of a website. Basically, just a time of response. So it's the same with the poster, given it's a fixed element. Okay, so you can also create emotional response, and this kind of response are always good to have a good impression, to mark the memory of the person, and so they can remember better your poster and your science. And also, by getting something interactive, you will actually guide the readers on a specific path when they read your poster. You can also do it already when you have methods and so on, but they will still interpret differently. If it's some interactivity, might enable you to guide and get everyone to get the same experience of a poster. And also, it's a good icebreaker and a good way to start to exchange between the people. So what we will do in this session is first have a little discussion in groups, how to improve your poster's interactivity. I don't want to show you example before, so you have not so you are clean of any previous interactivity, and then I will show you some examples and also show you how to do including AR posters, and then let you work again. Do some of you have brought any posters like as a on your computers or so on that you can work on? Oh, if you have some, yes, I mean, that could be nice if you want to. We can have like take your posters and see how you can make them more interactive. You guys can discuss. So yeah.
I have uploaded at the application.
Yeah, so we can have like one computer and screen where we can check them. And I'm not sure online if you have also some posters that you can work on together online. I'm not sure we will see answer.
If we have a message in the chat.
Yeah. Okay, so yes, I'm not sure if there is two poster, we can also skip, like if people want, we can also skip that and have a way shorter session if you want. So it's up to you guys. If there is not many people who have like a poster they can work on, so yes. You guys are free to tell me.
If they have the posters and they would be willing to.
Yeah, if you are willing to, then we can do two groups each side of the table, I guess, and you can try to converge together and have a discussions what could be interactive elements on the posters. And as I say, it can be different types of interactivity. And maybe there are already some interactive elements. I don't know. Yes, so I'll try to summarize the discussions. Maybe I can share actually one of the posters. Sharing should work. I mean, people in the room will have already seen it, but for people outside the room. So that was one of the posters, for example. Yeah, it's here there actually. And it was on one side, so it's about the title was something like
Astro Nerds Saving the Earth.
There was another title on WOVA also. Detective. There was Detective.
Climate Detectives. That's the initiative.
Yes. So
part of.
Yes, just by the title Detective, I was like, ooh, that might be interactive, because with the title Detective, you can have like games and like looking for things, and that's one of the mental interaction I was mentioning, where you're just not just reading but doing more. And we have examples on those two. On yours also, there are QR codes to go to stuff, so that's already some interactivity. We also had discussions here on this side, at least, about colors of posters and how bright colors are important to bring people. I was always saying in most of the conference where there was like a prize for best posters, every time the one winning are the one with bright colors, because they attract.
It's actually not an EPEC last year. It's my favorite one, and it's a completely black poster.
I would say it's colorful compared to white. It changed actually. It contrasts with the rest of the posters. I think that's the most important. For sure, if all the posters were very bright pink, then they don't contrast from one another. It's mostly contrast, maybe more than color. And we were also discussing actually that it's important to take care of colorblind people. It's like, I think 4% of the population has some color blindness. So
my supervisor's colorblind.
Yeah. So 4 out of 100 not 100 supervisors, of 100 scientists.
Yes? I mean, I didn't actually discuss that, but we talked about it. There's this, if you're not really good with colors, or you don't really know which colors you should choose if they match well, Adobe has a website, it's colors.adobe.com, and you can find like lots of color schemes where you can also upload a picture and then it creates a color scheme, and you can check if it's colorblind for all types of color blindness if it works, and you can check the contrast between your colors, and then it tells you if you can use those two colors as a background for something in the foreground, and if you can use it like as a background with the text on the foreground. So it's very useful.
Yeah.
I think so, but
yeah, no, there is like not only for posters but for slides and so on, and mainly for plots, because it's super difficult for plot if you cannot read them. You also have like websites where like that where you can put your image and it simulates a version for different type of color blindness, so you can see how it appears for colorblind people, and you can realize, oh yeah, actually it's very poor contrast. I can try to find back the link of the one I have in mind and put it in the comment on Wova afterwards. So yeah. Maybe we can go back to my slides. We also discussed actually smells, which is something I had not think of, but there was the idea like, oh, if you could interact with all the senses, you could interact with the sense of smell, and sometimes it might be actually useful. So I was telling the story that for Rosetta, so for Churyumov of Gerasimenko, the comet explored by Rosetta and Philae, there was lots of molecules linked to smells detected, and we collaborated with Perfume Maker to recreate this smell, which is mostly sulfur, so like rotten egg, not the best. And then it was on postcards with the image of Churyumov of Gerasimenko, but they worked really well. Like the public really wanted them. As the communication team, we didn't wanted them because every time we were giving them, then we could wash our hands like 10 times. We still had the smell on the fingers. So yeah, so we had the gloves afterwards, and even with the gloves, it was a nightmare. So yes. So yes, so you could actually, if it's relevant, like in this case, get this kind of things, and it's already interactive. So can we switch to the slides maybe? So, just to make a point, okay, so you can have different physical, like interactivities that are possible. How do I stop my screen sharing? So you could have like overlay splitting on transparent, and I will show an example for people that are online. So this is a poster of my camera, of my colleague. Can I? We're trying to find out to switch to the camera of the iPad. Okay, we can see it at least a little bit. So that's a poster from one of my colleagues, and she is doing like mapping, so geological mapping on Europa and other body of the solar system. And so you can see that you have maps like that. And for example, she is proposing like to get transparency and to get like a little game. So you take the different ones. One, for example, is a linear mapper, and you can like overlay it to see if it matches or not. It's a bit difficult with only one hand. And then you can, for example, take the human mapping version and try to do the same. So yeah, I think it's okay for the example to show us just like that. So you can use transparent layers. It's the same that she did here. So you can actually have the geological mapping, and you can remove and see like it's scratch. I didn't do it, so I'm not sure of the order. I'll try not to lose them. And so you can see the different like mappings and all the interact. So you can, yes, thank you. Feel free to interact with them if you're in the room after and play with them to a little bit. I have another example here with my own poster. So I'm doing yield estimations, but those yields, they depend on many hypotheses. And so basically here what I have is a poster. Do you know the books where you choose your own adventure books? So you are like, okay, you have to do, you decide to do this and that. if you decide this, go to page number 10, otherwise go to page number 20. It's the same idea here. So you make a choice on an observation strategy. So either 2 + 2 years or 4 years, and a choice of occurrence rate, so one other hypothesis. And then you can go, it says go to page 1 something or something 0, something 5. So you can like change the plot and see how the different hypotheses are actually changing the yield. And you can also see a second layer, which is like transparent. Actually, there are 2 transparent layers for each hypothesis. And those correspond to different precision reached. So because normally the nominal interest for the plateau mission is to get 3% precision on the planets. But in the case of the very long distance planets, like Earth-like planets at more or less 1 AU, so Earth-like, basically they are so far away that we don't have any transit and it's very difficult to get 3% precision, but we have a lot if you go to 10% precision, so you can really see on the transparent, difficult from far away, that it adds a lot in these regions, which is interesting, and which is why I want people also to see that, despite it's not the nominal case. So you can use transparency layers for this. Didn't stop correctly my video. Can we switch back to the slides, please? And we can also have other things like flipbook techniques or like doors and hiding. I think I wanted to say hinges. So where basically you've seen already those paper like books where you can move elements. You could get like exactly doors like that. I saw once a poster in conferences, and even though, because it was quite a long time ago, I don't remember exactly the details, I remember that there was this door, so it made really an impression. And I think it was linked to different chemicals species, and basically it was like, oh, can you guess what is the chemical element that is making those lines? And then you could open the door to reveal the solution. So this is the kind of interactive physical element you can get. And so you can have like different mechanisms with paper. So you can have things that are sliding, hinges, stuff rotating, like you could get, for example, like a wheel that turns and so on. And of course, like things that you can flap to reveal solution. I think that was one of the things you mentioned on your side, actually, to move the stuff. It requires a bit of more work to actually make these posters, and you go back to school, kind of, to do this manual project. But in my experience, I mean, this was also a winner of best poster at a conference. In my opinion, it's always like good feedback from the people attending the conferences. You could also get like a voting system. So depending what you are doing, this is another example where you can review some of the stuff. And this is not astronomy related. It's actually very hard to find this kind of example online. There are not many, but I've seen in conferences. And this one, for example, they propose to vote for strategy and so on. So you could imagine that in your field, of course, you cannot do all the stuff because it depends a lot on your subject, but you could imagine on some subject like, oh, vote for what you think is the best hypothesis or this kind of things. And if it's just a vote, it's already engaging the people. So I was saying there could be also mental interactivity. So in the sense that you can either be like passive while reading the poster, or you can actually be engaged while you read, so active. And that can be by challenging the person, for example, with riddle or multiple choice question or treasure hunt. And there was the example with the detective. You could get, for example, with the detective part, like really like a game within the posters that people have to find solutions. That was the case also with this door opening, where the person was asking, what do you think is the answer? And then like it's kind of a treasure hunt or so. So games on guessing, or in this case also choose your own hypothesis. Now, digital interaction. You can have links on your posters, but that's quite outdated, or is it? Maybe not, because what you can do as digital interaction is, of course, QR codes that you both add, which is a good thing. I mean, it's really a good practice now to get an online version of your poster, like either on a website or something, and get a QR code to this. So even if people don't have the time to read it right away, or they are tired, they don't want to read, maybe just by the title, they are like, oh, that's interesting me. I will flash a QR code, save that in my files, and read it later. It doesn't mean they will read it later. Still better if they read it now. But it's a good thing. And QR codes can either be like with just your contact or reference details. Also, it's a very good thing. So it's easy to contact someone when you see their posters. You can have a digital version of the poster to watch. You can have an extended version of the poster, for example, including videos that you cannot put on paper. Or you can have like even a reduced version if you want like to get better access to a plot. So people can just get the plot in big and be able to explore it, which or get the data from a plot or these kind of things. Or one of my colleagues put a QR code linking to the open source code that they are using. So that's a very good way also to get people to go. And last one is you could go to augmented reality. So for augmented reality, I will show you examples actually that I prepared. Share screen, yes. So are you familiar with, oh yeah, do you have questions before we go to augmented reality on like old school interactions, I would say?
I have a comment. I mean,
Yes.
all these things are beautiful or engaging, let's say like this, but maybe we do not exaggerate things. I mean, just choose one thing to engage the public
Yes.
and to make the poster more interactive. But if we choose everything, maybe it's too much.
No, that's true. So, and if it becomes too complicated, it also doesn't work. If sometimes you have posters that are made to be read alone, it should be that they could be read alone. But sometimes some posters they are made that if you don't have the person from the poster next to it to guide you, it's almost impossible to really understand the interactivity of it. So you need to make it simple enough for that and really guide the people if you have like interactive elements. So yes. Okay. So augmented reality. Actually, I had a few slides, I think. Sorry. We can switch back to the slide. I should have slides. So augmented reality, it's basically, the definition is that it's superimposing like computer generated stuff to a real world view. So basically, if you film with your camera, on the screen will appear with more stuff. Have you already seen augmented reality examples? Okay, good. So why you could go to augmented reality? So you could be able to, I was mentioning plots, you could be able to zoom in. So I will actually now switch to sharing my screen and try to show some example that I try to do in augmented reality. So for that, I'm using Adobe Aero, which is a free software that you can install on your phone if your phone is compatible. So it's either iOS or Android, but not all Android versions are compatible at the moment. So how does it work? You can see on the screen there what I have on my screen here. You feel free to try with the tablet afterwards, by the way. With the iPad, you can borrow it. And what it will say right now, it's saying in French, sorry for the French, find the image to see the augmented reality thing. So I need to find the poster, which in this case is on the floor. And once the poster is found, so you can see that compared to the actual poster, you have letters that are appearing, B, C, D, E. So this is a plot about neural networks, so AI stuff and so on. And for those kind of things, you have often those plots with different correlations and so on. It's fairly hard to read the plot even on small. So what I did on the AR version is that when you click, you can get a zoomed in version. So there is a bit of delay actually with thing. And when I click again, it disappears. So if I want to click, for example, on the D, I have the plot from the D that is popping up and that I can see in more details than actually even on paper, given it's so tiny. So I can really have a detailed look and so on. So that could be a very basic thing to do. I have a second example, which is much more interesting. I see. Zooming is not the best, it's not the most interesting stuff. If you are doing an AR version, you can take the opportunity to have that. But otherwise, on this poster, for example, you can see there is, where is my finger? So here you have like a plot. So it's a track plot. It's all the embryo are moving, like it's planetary formation, and all the embryo from the planets, they are moving in time in the disk. But those plots are better. Those plots are better when they are animated. I'm not sure we see the animation. Yeah. The streaming is too slow to catch up the animation. So you can check later with the tablets actually. So we have here, let me try to do it again. Show that you can see the plot is evolving over time. Yes. Well, in paper, you cannot get like a video. So that's one of the great advantages of augmented reality, for example, is that you could get animated things. And I have another example here. So for this one, I need a wolf. Let's take this one. So the first two I linked to an image. The last one is not linked to an image, so it's just scanning. You don't really see on the screen there, but you can see it's like mapping and detecting the surfaces. And then I will just say, okay, I choose this surface to anchor it. What I have here, you can enter James. Sorry. It'll just be on camera. So what you have here is like a map from the moon. I think it's a moon. No, I think it's Mars actually. It's a map of Mars that was used by, if you have done the GMAP, workshops, you might recognize it because I took it from a GMAP workshop publication like on Twitter. And so people like have done, I need to read that first. I've done like maps like that. And if I click on one of the maps, you can see that it's actually adding, when I want, for example, like the alien dunes, I click on it, it's adding where it has been geologically mapped. And we go back actually to colors. You can try it also after. I think it's way better to see in person. Maybe people online see better if it's fast enough actually, but I don't think it is. And you can, for example, if you want crater material and all the crater stuff, I have troubles to click today. So I just need to click less fast. So you can see it's add actually the craters and the stuff here on the side. And once again, we were discussing about color blindness. That's typically when I was seeing the map with everything activated, I was like, there are lots of things that are green, but I am not able to say what green is everything, although I'm not colorblind. So then you can deactivate each layer and put whatever you want when you interact. So it can be a great way to train. I have also on this side, actually, Kepler. So you can see it. So if you are like doing instrumentation, sometimes you have those nice drawings like optical paths but it might be very difficult to explain in 2D. So you put 3D models. I didn't add any other 3D models than Kepler to show an example. So, but I have colleagues that use Zemax. I guess they could have like very nice 3D models of their instrument and so on. So again, you should not do everything, but it's things that you could do. And one other example is actually to get 3D plots. Here I'm using occurrence rate that are in radius and period and radius. And on a 2D plot, it might not be easy to show. Like 2D histograms are useful, but if you have many parameters, sometimes a 3D histogram is useful also. So then the person can really turn around the histogram and understand it better, or it's even better for scatter plots in 3D, because scatter plots could be very useful, so you can really interact with the plot and go around and understand it, while you would have no other way to put it on paper, so except maybe one view also. And one of the last things is actually that the same poster here I could do with only one plot, and then in fact actually get the AR version where there you could change the options, so people can explore different cases. If you have multiple simulations, they could explore the other ones. Maybe I should actually show you an example now how it works to do AR. So how does it work, augmented reality? Need the tablet. Not sure if I'm still on my phone connection. Okay, good. So let's find back our wall. Okay. So how is it working? First, as I say, you have an anchor. You can have different types of anchors. They can either be like horizontal surfaces, vertical ones, or like pictures, as I mentioned. So if you want to anchor to a poster specifically. In the case of this one, actually, it had trouble. One of the problems when you try to anchor to a poster, like because it's so big, you need to be far away to see all of it and for it to be recognized by the tablet. So what I would do for this one is that I would anchor only like on one portion, which is the important portion of the poster. So that's a little trick for it to work better. Then what you do is that you can add. Okay, how do I take that? You can see I'm relatively new also with. Okay, good. So what you have is you can import elements. So I will just use starting resources as an example for now. And you can even have 3D animated models actually. But let's put an abstract form. Let's put a disk. Let's download. Oh, is my screen not shared anymore?
You stop at sharing.
Oh. I was disconnected apparently. Sorry, I will reshare it in a minute so you can see better.
I was trying to hunt you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not on. I was not on my phone anymore. That's why I lost the connection. I was back on the other connections.
Well, what's the name of the software?
So it's Adobe Aero.
Okay.
And so it's free. You can also have like a desktop version, because it might actually be tiring at some point when you are doing everything like that, holding the tablet or the phone. Yes.
To interact with it, do you also need the app, or can you just do it with regular phone? Because
So-
I imagine in conference, not everyone will have that on their phone. So then,
So that's the same for now. You need to tell people download the app on your phone and then scan the QR code. But that's something that not everyone has for
So
sure.
you
but
need the app.
you need the app. And what you do after though is, if you have like a normal QR code scanning app, when you scan it, it's actually also proposing you to download the app if you don't have it normally. So yes. And the app works on most Apple phones, so iPhones, that's a real name, and Apple phones, and latest Android versions also, like the older version of Android. Like my own phone doesn't work for that, which is why I'm the iPad actually.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna ask the same, but maybe leading up to that, do you know of any other similar software that can also be used with augmented reality, that where the user just has to scan the QR code and then it's maybe like embedded in a browser? Yes.
So being embedded in the browser is something that lots of people are asking Adobe to do. And as far as I know, there is nothing that enables you to get it embedded in a browser. Because, partially because you need to actually be like using the camera. And you know, on all the latest phone, you also have like a LiDAR sensor for the distance, which is helping a lot for this kind of technology. So you don't really have possibility to do it in a browser usually because it's too complicated to get something that would work for every asset, so every picture, movie, and so on. You would want to interact. You won't want to include. Sorry. So browsers don't work so far, but what you should keep in mind is that Adobe Aero, for example, which is, as I say, normally it's free, and you also have a desktop version that you can use to design the stuff, but not to experience the stuff. You cannot use a webcam to do it. It's only phones. And it's unclear to me. I asked them once why it's not possible to do a webcam, and apparently it's very challenging to use a webcam instead. Also because, well, for like laptops, the webcam is at the top, so it would be difficult to hold the laptop and shoot at the same time. So they don't want to implement that yet. They think there is better things to do. But the software is only 2 or 3 years old. And Adobe, in my experience, I've been using like Photoshop for over 15 years now. You can really see like development on the way. And I think they really want to develop Aero a lot. It's one of their goals is to really develop augmented reality. So they are already adding support to new stuff. Like the first time I tried it, it was not possible to put a video. Now it's possible. I will tell you actually after how you do it, because it's not so straightforward, but it's possible. So, and they are adding things. So you could also actually add sound. Yeah, I've been disconnected, so I would need the. Now I would need the password again for the reunion and so on. So just one second.
Yeah, I was also asking because you said it's only 2-3 years old, and I have seen augmented reality. I mean, it's older than just Adobe Aero, so there is other applications. I was wondering if you have tried other applications as well, if it's also possible to use other applications.
So yes, but I didn't answer that part actually. That's true. There are other applications. That being said, I'm not sure they will be supported over long times, because I've also seen like augmented reality for many years now, and even on way older phones, but usually they were really specific, and you could not necessarily like add your own stuff as you want. So now you have a few other examples. I don't have the names. I just know that there are other softwares that can do that. That being said, again, they are not necessarily free. Some of them. The advantage of Aero is that it's free, and at least for now. And I think the goal is to keep free the reader version anyway. Maybe to design an augmented reality experience, it will not be free anymore in the future. That would not be surprising given Adobe usual policy. But for reading, it's in their interest, just like Flash, in the time that everyone can install it. So yeah, their goal is to really get it, like I think, as a standard as Flash, to make it accessible on every phone. Now the interest of Adobe Aero for me compared to another software is that it's compatible with please. Is that personally I'm using all the other Adobe apps, and it's compatible, so you can directly import some stuff. It can directly export stuff for Aero, which might be more complicated to export from one software to an independent augmented reality software. And the second thing is that because it's Adobe, you are sure that you will get like it will be supported for a relatively extended time. So there has been counterexample in the past, like Adobe Dimension, which was for 3D rendering. They stopped. I mean, it's still usable, but they stopped doing it. But it's because they bought Substance, which is a much bigger thing and which has much more functionality. So that's the only counterexample I know of. And of course, Flash was stopped after many years, but it took many years before it was discontinued. So that's for me one of the interests of Aero, is that I believe it will be supported by the company for a long time. So it should not be stopped so soon. Oh yeah, sorry. So share again. Screen. So I was there. And so you can, I was saying you can add, oh, you cannot see anything on the screen actually. Well, you can add resources. I will just put one randomly here. And then you can place it, so you can move it like in 3 dimensions. So you can even have like layered elements. You can, of course, rotate the stuff, so as much as you want, and also rescale the stuff. Make it bigger or smaller. And I will just put a second element, show you another abstract shape. Let's put the flower shape. So then, because I want to show you what is important, is at the bottom, you have something like called behavior. And then you can see I have actually a lot of behaviors already for all my layers. That's the long part to do. It will be to do the assets and also the behavior. And so if I add, you can add 4 types of behaviors. Either it starts at the beginning when you click something, or when you enter the proximity or leave something, some area. So then if you have an object and when you come closer to it, it will automatically start one action. I think for posters, we would use mostly click. And so then you choose what you have to click. So it's the disk in this case. If I click the disk, okay, I validate, then I can do an action. And here you have lots of different types of actions. So it can be have an animation, if it's a 3D model, have audio content, get a video. It can also just be like a display or hide something. So I will move something, change size or so on, open a link. So if you would want to have like a link to like some stuff online to your coordinate, you could get that also embedded. And here I will just say, for example, hide the flower. Okay, so you have, of course, parameters, and then you validate. And those behaviors, they are basically what is important in AR. And then when I go to like preview of the experience, when I click the disk, you can see that the flower disappear. So that's how it works. You have lots of different actions possible. So you, if you want to try Aero, feel free to come try with my iPad later. I would be happy to. And I do have a few more slides to finish. Just to talk about AR. So I mentioned that you can do videos, 3D plots, so scatter histogram surfaces also, which can be sometimes useful, but that you have difficulty to put, sounds, 3D visualization, and so on. And I don't know if you guys have other ideas. So things that are important if you want to do an augmented reality poster is that it should not just be like a toy. You know, in the case of the Zoom here, it was to show an example to Zoom, but I don't think it should be something on its own, because it's more like, oh, look, I have included it, but I don't think it brings anything. And the other thing is that it should not mean that something is missing from your poster with the paper version, because not everyone will be able to go on it. Few technical things that are important also is that you should have posters with big contrast, otherwise the image will not be recognized. And you have to include a QR code at some point to link to the augmented reality experience, of course. And you have also to prepare those elements, because it's not like, even if those ones were just example and not necessarily the best example I could have done, because I didn't add enough time. It took me quite a lot of time to prepare, in particular the one with the geological map, to click everything. It takes a lot of time to actually do that, more than you could expect. It's once you get used to it, it's a process that's fairly quick, but it still takes a bit of time. There are some problems with augmented reality though. So we mentioned that you need to install the software if you don't have it. That not all devices are compatible, and you need internet connection. And as we see here, with the hotel connection, it's actually a problem. So people would have trouble to download the AR interaction that, so you need to download the AR experience on your phone. So Aero is doing it automatically. And if you don't have any internet, it will not work. So you need more time, of course. And for now, one of the things is that actually the video I put, it's not a video. It's like each frame individually in a zip. So you cannot put like an MP4 or something like that, or a dot move. You have to make it like image by image. But usually if you are able to do a video plot, you know how to do that also directly at the export and put the zip. So that's a shortcoming. That's for technical reasons for now for them. And the other thing is that I said it would be nice to put like scatter plots and so on. But at the moment, there are, as far as I can tell, there is really a lack of libraries that enable you to export a 3D plot into a 3D model, because the 3D library, the 3D plots, they're actually only rendered like a point of view, if you prefer, like projection generated by the computer and not a model. And so for now, there is a lack of this library. That being said, for something like a scatter plot, it would be fairly, that's one of the things I want to do. It would be fairly easy to write something that actually code the 3D model. So I want to do it and hopefully be able to put it available for others. But there is a lack of this kind of libraries for now, as far as I can tell. And that's something that is to be considered if you want to do that. So yes, and there are still technical challenges, like if there would be a bad light, it might not recognize the image that you want. Sometimes when you try to recognize the image, like it's a bit jittery when you encode an image, so like the plot would be moving like that, and so on and so on. But overall, that's like that. Don't know if you have any questions left over, and if not, we can either conclude the session, or you can rework on your poster and try to see, now that we have discussed that, what you could bring as AR element or interactive element. So it's up to you. Maybe you have questions already. Yeah, so augmented reality for poster is not used yet in conferences, but I hope that's something that would be used in the future, because I think really it can bring elements. It's not so trivial. It will need experimenting. As I say, it's like an experimental thing today. It will need experimenting, and I really think there are like cases where it can bring some good stuff. Thank you, everyone.